This is Mac OS Ken.
Evercore is still way positive on Apple, -0 COVID in China, and fighting union with, quote, union, end quote. It is Monday, the 19th of December, 2022. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from Mac OS Ken, brought to you by yours truly and sponsored by Rocket Money. Cancel unwanted subscriptions and save at rocketmoney.com/MOK. This show is also sponsored by SimpliSafe, the right way to protect your home. Did you know that property crimes like burglaries and package thefts spike over the winter? That's why now is the best time to secure your home with award-winning home security. Make it your resolution to start the new year with greater safety and peace of mind for you and your family with SimpliSafe. I love that SimpliSafe lets you pick what you need to protect your home. And there is a lot from which to choose. SimpliSafe is whole home security with advanced sensors for every room, window, and door, HD security cameras for inside and out, smarter ways to detect motion that alert you only when the threat is real, and even hazard sensors that detect fires, floods, and other threats to your home. And getting set up is super simple. I had my system up and running in well under an hour. Get that done and SimpliSafe takes over, offering 24/7 professional monitoring for under $1 a day. That is less than half the price of ADT's traditional, professionally installed system. Customize the perfect system for your home in just a few minutes at simplysafe.com/macOSKen. Go today and claim a free indoor security camera plus 20% off your order with interactive monitoring. SIMPLI. That's simplysafe.com/macOSKen. There's no safe like SimpliSafe. If there is one thing Evercore analyst Amit Daryanani likes, it is a long-term investment in Apple shares. MarketWatch highlighted a note he wrote on Friday, wherein he named ticker symbol AAPL his firm's top set and forget investment. Yes, he knows about the fiasco that is/was iPhone City. Doesn't concern him. Quoting his note, while we understand investors are concerned about the near-term iPhone outlook given manufacturing disruption issues in China, we see any headwinds as transitory, and investors should remain focused on the long-term opportunity. I think he means the opportunity that is Apple, since he outlines a couple of opportunities for the Cupertino company. Quoting his note again, we feel confident that Apple is working on augmented reality and virtual reality products, and this will likely be the next major hardware product. On the software side, Apple is making big moves in advertising and payments that are generally underappreciated by investors. Daryanani sees a high probability that Apple will try the mixed reality headset thing in the next 6 to 12 months. If it follows a similar trajectory to Apple Watch, it could contribute $18.1 billion to sales and 19 cents to earnings per share at scale, according to the analyst. As for the payments part, Daryanani says Apple's interest in financial services makes a lot of sense, as a big part of their digital services strategies revolves around building toll booths throughout the ecosystem. The way he sees it, the fintech side of the tech giant could generate $11.6 billion in revenue by fiscal year 2026. If there is one thing he likes, it's a long-term investment in Apple. Daryanani has a positive rating on Apple shares. His price target on the shares is $190. Most COVID restrictions have been lifted at Foxconn's iPhone City plant in Jiangsu, China. So says a piece from 9 to 5 Mac. The closed loop is apparently no loop now, with the plant's point-to-point system ended. The piece explains that was the system in which workers were only allowed to move directly between their dormitory and place on the production line, with no other movement within the plant allowed. That meant no access to cafeteria and leisure facilities, and of course, no leaving. The change comes as China seems to have abandoned its zero COVID restrictions. It also comes as the country faces its biggest public health challenge since the start of the coronavirus pandemic, according to CBS News. Quoting that report, 9 days after the Chinese government abruptly abandoned its draconian zero-COVID policy, halting mandatory mass testing and forcible quarantines, COVID-19 is once again spreading like wildfire across the vast country. Interestingly, the World Health Organization says one of those things has nothing to do with the other. Dr. Mike Ryan, head of emergency programs for WHO, says the explosion of cases in China is not due to the lifting of COVID restrictions. The explosion of cases in China had started long before any easing of the zero COVID policy. Sounds kind of crazy. Then you remember that the COVID outbreak at the iPhone City plant started when zero COVID was still in full effect. If you're wondering what all of this means for iPhone production, we're going to have to wait and see on that one. 9 to 5 Mac says it is still likely to take considerable time to ramp up iPhone 14 Pro production to the point where supply balances with demand, but at least iPhone workers will have dramatically better working conditions. This, in turn, should help Foxconn recruit more staff to replace those who left. You know the phrase, fight fire with fire? Apple stands accused of trying to fight union with union. We've heard talk throughout 2022 of Apple retail locations considering moves to unionize their stores. We've also heard accusations of anti-union maneuvering by the Cupertino company. Now a piece from 9 to 5 Mac says the company has tried to head off unionization moves by organizing a pseudo-union. Highlighting a Bloomberg report, 9 to 5 Mac says the Communication Workers of America, or CWA, filed a complaint with the National Labor Relations Board last week, accusing Apple of soliciting employees to join an employer-created, employer-dominated labor organization as a means of stifling union activities. That is in addition to a starting to become standard charge of holding mandatory anti-union meetings in which management falsely claimed that the company would be legally barred from negotiating on certain topics if workers unionized. The most recent complaint is said to center around activities at Apple's Easton Town Center store in Columbus, Ohio. In an email to Bloomberg, a CWA exec said, "Creating a work group controlled by management is undemocratic and a clear attempt at union busting. If management actually cared about workers having a voice on the job, they would direct to Apple Retail Union /CWA, which is run by workers, not bosses." Apple did not offer comment for the Bloomberg report. More news in a moment, but first a word from today's sponsor, Rocket Money. Do you know how much your subscriptions really cost? Most people think they spend about $80 a month on subscriptions, but for many, it is closer to $200 a month. You could be wasting hundreds of dollars each month on subscriptions you don't use anymore or might have even forgotten about. Rocket Money, formerly known as Truebill, could make that a thing of the past. The Rocket Money app shows you all of your subscriptions in one place. See some you don't remember or even recognize? Rocket Money can take care of those. To cancel a subscription, all you have to do is press cancel, and Rocket Money takes care of the rest. Get rid of useless subscriptions with Rocket Money now. Go to rocketmoney.com/MOK. Seriously, it could save you hundreds per year. That's rocketmoney.com/MOK. rocketmoney.com/MOK. Cancel your unnecessary subscriptions right now at rocketmoney.com/MOK. Here is something crazy sounding. Apple has a lease on an office in Russia, out of which it is trying to get. The lease, that is, not Russia. Apple's pretty much out of Russia, but let's back up. Back in mid-2021, the Russian government passed laws requiring tech companies of a certain size that wanted to do business in Russia to have offices in Russia. In early 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine, and suddenly those tech companies wanting to do business in Russia didn't want to do business in Russia anymore. But Apple had just moved into its Russia office about a month before the invasion. While the company has gotten its workers out, stopped product sales in Russia, and suspended most services there, they were 1 month into a 3-year lease on an office that can't have been cheap. It is within sight of the Kremlin, according to a piece from Apple Must. It is so strange to me that the company is trying to terminate this lease. Why not just pay it out? Why not just keep sending checks once a month? Unless it's about not wanting to give any money to anybody in Russia, in which case, why not stop paying? But Apple Must says the Cupertino company is in talks to close the office. All of this proves one thing: the world will never stop being weird. The curse of the Apple TV Plus series Shantaram has come to an end, in a way just as cursed as the rest of the series. One of the earliest titles picked up by Apple, long before Apple TV Plus was announced, the show got a couple of episodes into filming before producers found out that the original writer and showrunner hadn't gotten around to writing all the episodes they were supposed to shoot. Then COVID-19 hit, hampering the search for a new writer and slowing international shooting once they actually had scripts to shoot. Finally produced, it finally started running, and that seems to have been plenty for Apple. A piece from Deadline says the Cupertino streamer has canceled the show after its first, and now only season. And finally today, checking the working Apple One price index. I told you a week or so ago that another one of these allegedly rare machines was going up for auction. What made this one special, besides the fact that it exists and it works, is that it was hand-numbered by Apple co-founder and CEO Steve Jobs. RR Auction had expected the machine to fetch $375,000 or so. It did better than that. A piece from Apple Insider says last week's auction ended with the machine going for $442,000. Other Jobs paraphernalia up for bids included a Next computer brochure signed by Jobs that went for $18,210. An early production model of an actual Next computer, circa 1988, went for about a third of that, selling for just under $6,100. And getting a bit of love from bidders was current Apple CEO Tim Cook. Apple Insider says an Auburn University football signed by Cook sold for just under $5,700. Today on the Mac Observer's Daily Observations podcast, TMO managing editor Jeff Butts and I talk the lifting of COVID restrictions at the iPhone City plant, plus Will Smith, AirDrop, and Continuity each pop out of the mailbag. That is all today on the Daily Observations podcast from the Mac Observer, online at macobserver.com or wherever you get podcasts. macOS Ken, brought to you by me and sponsored by SimpliSafe. Get a free indoor security camera plus 20% off your order with interactive monitoring at simplysafe.com/macOSKen. This show is also sponsored by Rocket Money. Cancel unwanted subscriptions and save at rocketmoney.com/MOK. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media. Online at backbeatmedia.com. You can reach me a couple of ways. Info at macoscan.com or call 716-780-4080. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.
Ciao.